when he does it and he crosses his arms and then he waits a beat and then he like goes for his pocket, seems like a player to me.
It's good that he brought up Hitler, because we're definitely not playing the new Kanye song. But in our next media block, we do have, speaking of narrative history and different warped versions, we do have Miami's top cop taking on Hitler in a time traveling storyline. I think that'll be something that's really exciting, a little off kilter for the audience. And we've also got the cocaine train, little clip from the train full of some of the world leaders out there. Is it a Baggie? Is it a Kleenex? I don't know. Time will tell. You guys can decide for yourself with your own eyes. And I think we're kicking it off with a video. I believe it's a Benny Johnson video. It is Matt Walsh going nuclear on the fact that we've still got the Shiloh, Hendrix, Carmelo Anthony battle of the fundraising for terrible purposes. So we're going to see his thoughts on that. And when we come back, maybe we'll all be back together.
The N-word. What's up, guys? It's Benny. Give me what society looks like as it careens towards collapse and civil war, Alex, for 500,000. Actually, not just 500,000. $523,581. The give, send, go for Carmelo Anthony. What did Carmelo Anthony do to deserve this large sum of money? I mean, you're talking $500,000 here. Well, he murdered a white kid. The end. That's it. Did the white kid deserve it? No. It didn't matter if the white kid was attacking it. Nobody deserves to be murdered. I mean, I guess you could argue self-defense if he was literally being attacked, but no. Austin Metcalf, the white kid, just asked him to move. Carmelo Anthony's family now lives in a brand new home, $900,000 home in a gated community, new cars, getting Uber Eats. Carmelo Anthony was released from jail by his DEI judge and is now playing video games and eating Uber Eats deep dish pizzas in the very expensive neighborhood with the neighborhood pool. Would you look at that? Wow. Giant, some cabanas there, a water slide. This is the fate for Carmelo Anthony for killing a white kid in cold blood who was unarmed.
It's a long walk. I'll be back in Poland.
And through my bathroom, huh?
Yeah. It's literally. We came through Germany.
Yeah.
And then we made it to
German
France.
bedroom and
we got through the border.
Right.
The photo, and after that you will be allowed to have a drink.
Yeah.
Super.
Yeah.
Tout le monde va bien. Ok, c'est bon. Merci. Merci.
Merci. Thank you.
I wanted to give him the benefit of the doubt, but that's real shady right there. I've seen shady people do shady things like that. It doesn't matter if you're Prime Minister of France. Go ahead, play it.
It's a long walk. I'll be back in Poland.
And through my bathroom, huh?
Yeah. It's literally. We came through Germany.
Yeah.
And then we made it to
German
France.
bedroom and
we got through the border.
Right.
Make a photo, and after that you will be allowed to have a drink.
Yeah.
Super.
Yeah.
Oh, come on.
Tout le monde va bien. Ok, c'est bon. Merci. Merci.
Merci.
Thank you.
Okay. So let's give the benefit of the doubt. There is a chance that there's a piece of garbage on a table and at the photo opportunity, you know, him being sensitive to that, he swipes it off the table. Personally, I'd have probably thrown it on the ground. I wouldn't be putting it in my pocket. It's somebody else's garbage. I really probably wouldn't put it in my pocket. I'd probably, you know, get it out of frame. But when he does it and he crosses his arms and then he waits a beat and then he like goes for his pocket, seems like a player to me.
It is, and that angle didn't really show it, but there's another angle of that little spoon that the other guy. Let me see if I can find an image of it here. But that's telltale too, and I was looking up similar ones. I'm sure.
Was there a straw on the table too?
Here we go. Here, let me do my little thing here. Okay, boom. So that right there. A little thingamajigger.
Maybe that's
a golf putter.
It's for adding sweetener.
Exactly. When you look them up online, it says they're like little salt spoons, like you can get on Amazon, right?
Oh,
Just salt in the baggie.
salt in the baggie, not a problem. It's not Hunter Biden-esque at all. I bet salt in the baggie. I bet he is jealous that he didn't use that excuse. Oh, the world leaders.
See, look, you can, it's just like little guys, like just like that guy right there. See, look at that guy. See?
Yeah, it definitely wouldn't be useful for dispensing a powder from a baggie. But I'd have to say, like, my respect of Macron goes down. Like, he gets his blow in a baggie. What's up with that, dude? Is this 1984 LA? Like, I don't know.
It's what
Even
they
in
had
New
to
York
sneak
25 years ago, they had more advanced methods of, like, people partying out there. To each their own.
Come on.
The funny thing was the German chancellor. He's like, "Oh, you guys had to go through my bathroom to get here," and I'm like, "Oh, maybe they got confused and thought they were in the washroom, and this instinct took over."
Maybe that's what Zelensky thought when he was using that room right before they used it. Is that the rumor?
Yeah, it is quite a nice bathroom you have here.
Yeah, but Macron wasn't like, "Hey, someone left their stuff in here." He acted like either he knows what that is and that's his now, or it was his in the first place. And he's like, "Oh, I didn't know there was going to be a press crew in here." I mean, I don't know. If he didn't have such a background with Brigitte and working for Rothschild Bank and stuff like that, like I probably wouldn't, have so much scrutiny. No, but if you recall back, Colby, or maybe Scott can find it and pass it to Colby. There's a video of Macron a couple years ago, and they were talking about like grandiose wealth. And he had a timepiece on that's like, $100,000 watch. And he takes it off and hides it under the table. So now I've seen that behavior twice. And, I got to ask questions. Shouldn't just assume the Schoolhouse Rock version of history is true. You should look at it with a little more scrutiny and curiosity. Do we, is that findable?
Yep. I got it right here. So this is, let me see if I can just blow up my window here. Well, I guess I'm just going to have to do it like this. Okay, so we'll go like this. Boom. In the middle of his appearance on TV, Macron realized that he was wearing a watch worth 80,000 euros, so he quickly decided to take it off without anyone noticing. Didn't really play it very well.
Yeah, right here. Yeah, I mean, at least it shows he's not tone deaf. He just was like late on the tone deafness pickup. He like realized it when he's reading the prompter. He's like, oh, better take that off. 80,000 euros is a lot of money. It's 100 grand in America.
My other favorite version of that was during the COVID when the politicians wouldn't be wearing the masks. And then right before the cameras started rolling, everybody would put their mask on and they would do a little political theater in the opposite direction.
Yes. Many such cases back in the day. It's like the guy from New York that O'Keefe busted, that guy that was having all the like sex parties and stuff during the lockdowns. And it's like the guy, Neil Ferguson over in the UK. And again, he was the guy telling people they had to be locking down and he's out having affairs and like because they obviously had a different level of fear than the rest of the population, right? People fearing a biological weapon being released don't go have sex orgies like that. Those are people on the inside. They got told a story. Like, here's what's going to happen, and here's how you play it. But for most people, they got fucked at the drive-through. And I think you can trace that back to some governmental and extra-governmental organizations.
It's almost like they've gotten complacent or cocky or disconnected from the reality of the perception of the situation. And so it's almost, you start to wonder when they get sloppy if it's like the externalization of the hierarchy. Are they just releasing these kind of things on purpose? Are they creating these opportunities on purpose? Or are these people just so dumbly confident that they just keep slipping up and sloppily releasing evidence, revealing their crimes like in real time?
I think for a long time they were comfortable.
No, I think they're really comfortable. I think if you really think about the system, this control perception system, it used to be nothing went out over the airwaves that was not supposed to, go out. Now, every once in a while, something, will go out astray. But for the most part, they're controlling every screen and deceiving every audience.
Technocracy. What an idea to control people and govern them by AI proxies. It's not like Logan's Run pointed that out 50 years ago.
Somebody in the chat just said something about scrutiny immunity. And that's what I really think they have. They think they are beyond actual scrutiny. They're like, yeah, if somebody comes up to me, if a Luke Radowski comes up to Lord Rothschild on the street, they're like, oh, don't worry, our PR teams will cover whatever comes of that encounter. You know what I mean? And so, yeah, a lot of these people, they're just like, I can say and do whatever I want. There's not going to be any consequences, right? I'm a big deal. I'm a made man.
If they didn't want people to notice 9/11, they could have waited an hour till it was dark and then no one would see World Trade Center 7. But they knew they could do it and get away with it. It's kind of like the bragging.
Who said Americans don't read?
That would be Alan Dulles, but that's a hard footnote to find. I have sourced it. It does exist, but it's in like the minutia of notes. It's not like in the short version, abridged type thing that you would have at Barnes & Noble or Amazon. But yeah, he said, someone asked him, like, aren't you concerned someone's going to look at the evidence and find out it wasn't a lone gunman? And he's like, there's a few academics who will actually read the literature, but their future basically depends on them not saying anything. And then the public, the general public, people don't read. That's what he got quoted on. So
that's why I do picture books.
Yeah, that's why you do picture books.
Podcasts. They didn't know podcasts were going to come out. There you go.
That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah, and they didn't know that people would start thinking for themselves. Schooling has been a very effective thing, such that even if you tell them World Trade Center 7 fell down, et cetera, wasn't hit by a plane, they can't compute. They can't make it compute, right? So they have been relying that the schooling system would continue to be effective against people's education.
And that's the biggest cage that they've drawn around us, is the 12 years of schooling to convince us that the mafia is not the mafia, that they're this benevolent force, right? As long as we buy into that central premise of that false narrative, everything else can be piled on top of that.
Warlords that pretend to let us elect them.
Like a layer cake. That's how that works. Do you ever see the movie Daniel Craig? It's one of his best movies.
No, what's it called?
Layer cake. Layer cake. You've never seen it? Seriously?
No, I don't know.
It's like a 2003, maybe he had just gotten cast for James Bond, but I don't think he was James Bond yet. And he's a gangster, and he's involved with some other gangsters, and some gangster shit goes on. And I don't think Guy Ritchie produced it, but it's a very Guy Ritchie-ish type of plot. And it's a really good movie.
Yeah, it's Guy Ritchie's producer. His name's Matthew Vaughn. He's the director of Layer Cake.
There you go. Matthew Vaughn also did what? Snatch?
The Kingsman series.
Right on.
So
Anglo-American propaganda series.
Big time.
Following in the steps of James Bond and Ian Fleming.
Speaking of movies, you know what I watched the other night? Waco.
The man who would be king.
Waco,
You
A
didn't let
New
me guess.
Revelation.
You asked a question, then you didn't let me guess. The man who would be king. Did you
No,
watch
it
that
was-
with Sean Connery and Michael Caine?
No, it was Waco, A New Revelation. Have you seen it?
No, I've only seen Waco Rules of Engagement, which is pretty visceral. If you're a statist and you watch that would you would see the cage after that.
So, same crew, Waco, A New Revelation came afterwards. And so the New Revelation in kind of Waco, A New Revelation, which is an older movie, but it was the recent anniversary of both Waco and the Oklahoma City bombing. It was the 30th anniversary. And so I'm working on an article for my Substack on kind of both of those. But the new revelation that they had was, a lot of people don't realize this, but the FBI during the final assault, they had a plane that was circling overhead, shooting forward-looking infrared video of the entire scene. And they introduced part of the video from that plane saying this is the Davidians set themselves on fire. And, once they introduced
Well, I mean, I remember seeing the FLIR footage of the tank setting the building on fire.
So the other piece, so once they introduced it into evidence through discovery, the defense team said, hey, we want to see the entire FLIR video. And when you watch the entire FLIR video, not only do you see the tanks setting the building on fire, but you actually see a couple of guys rolling out behind the tanks, shooting people in the building. So either shooting people that were in the building or were trying to leave the building. So they're essentially setting the building on fire. And then the FLIR expert so the House Government Reform Committee, headed by Dan Burton, they'd hired one of the world's foremost experts on FLIR, a guy named Carlos Giagatti. And he was evidently suicided. He died by suicide during while he was
We
evaluating.
don't say suicided, we say Ron Brown around
You
here.
got Ron Brown, Vincent Foster, whatever, term you want to use. And that's, a New York Times kind of fact. And then the guy that produced it in this, Edward Allard, who was another FLIR expert on this, he had a heart attack right after this movie came out. And so you can actually see, them machine gunning. And then the other big revelation that they had is they had an ex-Special Forces guy and they had an ex-CIA guy that essentially on video said that, it was Delta Force Squad B.
I was going to say Delta Force when you said they came out from behind the tank and were shooting at the civilians.
Yeah, there were up to 10 Delta Force members at Waco, and they were talking about it with some of the guys at Fort Bragg and the CIA guy, and they both kind of blew the whistle, and they go, they told it I'm a firsthand witness. I was told by these members of Delta Force that it was Squad B on the ground pulling triggers, that they had gotten into a firefight with Davidians, and the official story of Waco was that the FBI didn't fire at all the entire day. They didn't use any incendiary devices that would have set the flammable tear gas on fire. And then some of the other revelations that came out of the book is they found multiple incendiary projectiles, 40 millimeter tear gas grenades, illumination flares, different things that could have sparked that fire. They found those. The Texas Rangers found those in the rubble. But the really big revelation is you can see it clear as day. There are people deploying these armored personnel carriers and combat engineering vehicles are knocking holes in the Branch Davidians church. There's guys that are deploying off the back and machine gunning people either in the building or trying to leave the building. And you can see it clear as day, and it's available on YouTube. It's called Waco: A New Revelation. But anyway, I watched that the other night to try and get all of my my facts straight for the article that I'm working on for the anniversary.
The idea that American Delta Force soldiers would be going after American civilians on American soil Seems like a foreign, crazy, far out idea. However, if you follow the history of such things, as I once did, once upon a time, special forces in the United States, even though SOCOM from 87 to present has been running it, special forces has an interesting background. And there's some Nazis involved, and there's some British groups and various, agents of an empire that we've once fought against, who developed a lot of these ideas and then collected ideas out of the Nazis to combine them into what today's special forces are and do. And false flags are something that they have participated in, stimulate. Like they'll go someplace and shoot some people and get people fighting. They'll conduct the orders of whatever Joint Chiefs and SOCOM tells them to do, because they'll be told it's for the greater good, it's for a bigger picture, it's beyond your pay grade, don't question orders, any of that type of stuff. So Delta Force is respected in a number of ways, and Red Cell was an infamous part of Delta Force back in the day. It is not too far afield to think that those things can happen. Now, was it officially Delta Force, or were they private contractors? Was it officially the FBI, or did they have some people there that are confidential informants that did the things that the FBI denied, right? Like, oh, we didn't do that. But like, look at their history outside of that event. 1993 World Trade Center bombing, aside from Oklahoma City, you had a lot of activity with 9/11 where they're like, knew the hijackers were there and keeping an eye on them, but not doing anything about it. So it's interesting. You don't have to pull judgment and make a decision. But I think, to Howard's point, recognizing the cage they've built is what allows you to eventually liberate yourself through learning and reading.
One more kind of interesting fact. So in the Waco standoff, they said they never fired. One of the hostage rescue team snipers that was deployed at Waco was Lon Haruchi, who 7 months before Waco had shot Vicky Weaver in the face.
Oh, geez.
Yeah, he was one of the snipers, and the Texas Rangers at his sniper position found 4 spent shell casings, even though they claim they never fired a shot. But in this video, Edward Allard, claims that he counted over 67, visible muzzle flashes that were visible just from the FLIR.
FLIR, yeah.
Yeah, 57, I think.
So that's not reflections or blinking lights or any other thing. FLIR's picking up heat signatures.
It's picking up heat, and it's unmistakably clear as day. These are 2 guys that have deployed off of this armored vehicle, and they're obviously firing. They're in prone position, firing automatic weapons into the house.
Do you think they reverse engineered that helmet that the Predator wore? Because he had thermal vision back in the day. Which came first?
This was an FBI plane circling overhead that day, and they shot it themselves. And once they introduced it into evidence, then the defense team said, "Hey, wait, Discovery, we want to see the whole video." And then the FBI kind of busted themselves by just trying to use a snippet for their own purposes, and now you've got them clear as day. And it really is. It's amazing to me that if you watch this movie, it's absolutely clear to anybody that watches it that the FBI murdered 80 men, women, and children. And then kind of the thesis of my article is, why did they, so it was actually the 30th anniversary of the Oklahoma City bombing. And I'm making the case in the article that the number one suspects in that were the ATF and the FBI. And why would the FBI and the ATF blow up a federal building with a daycare center in Oklahoma? And so just to, take the audience back there. So after Waco, there was a citizens militia movement, popped up in the United States, and dozens and dozens and dozens, if not hundreds, of citizen militias all over the country, especially in Michigan, especially in Texas, especially in certain states had them kind of more than others. But the population, and this was back in the days of where a viral video was a VHS tape. that was going around. And there was a citizens militia movement in the United States, and people were arming up to fight the federal government. And so the article makes the case they took a quote unquote ex special forces guy named Tim McVeigh. They sheep dipped him. They sent him around to white supremacist militia meetings, and where he made a scene for himself, even though he told his family he was working for the government as a secret agent and everything like that. And they tarred the developing militia movement as white supremacist baby killers that blow up daycare centers and federal buildings. That was to get the militia movement off their back that developed after Waco.
Sounds like what they did to the Ron Paul movement with the Tea Party and turning it into this whole other astroturfing of legitimate, like, populist uprising from people who are more libertarian minded than totalitarian. So they just use the same playbook every 10, 20 years.
Well, they had Dick Armey and Sarah Palin come in with about $40 million. And if you've ever seen the movie Animal House, where the marching band is coming down the street, and one of the brothers goes and he knocks the guy leading the band, catches the
it just
thing,
takes off,
and then takes the band right into the dead end. That's essentially what happened with the Ron Paul movement and the Tea Party. Is Sarah Palin and Dick Armey came in with a big suitcase full of money, and they just made the whole thing now left, right. It wasn't, libertarian anymore. Now it was a Republican thing. And so now, it wasn't, they just co-opted it, and they let it right into the dead end of left, right politics.
Another famous quote from that movie is, "Toga, toga." No, I'm just kidding. But it has a famous line.
Yeah.
Double probation. Double secret probation.
Double secret probation.
Double secret probation. That's another one. And I think it was Harold Melvin in the Blue Notes. It was like the best part of that movie. That was hilarious. Yeah.
Yeah. Vegetables are sensual. People are sensuous.
Well, I was going to say that's a non sequitur. I don't know how to pick that one up.
Yeah.
It's a hot potato. It hit the ground. No one's eating it now. As far as the censorship going on, going back to Shiloh Hendrix, a story that I wish I didn't have to know about. First off, let's just take color out of it for a minute, because it seems like every report on it is very racially charged, very racially colored, you might say, pun intended, by people's perspectives that were probably predetermined before Shiloh Hendrix even became a story. So it's like, take color away from it for a second. Do you think it's reasonable for an adult to talk to a child like that? Do you think it's reasonable for a child to steal from an adult in a public place and expect no one to do anything about it? Like, these are just ideas for discussion. What puts a person in a position to steal from somebody who has a baby, right? Is it maliciousness? Is it out of necessity? Is it a TikTok thing that they saw? Like, what is going on, right? And then for everyone to, like, it's a very polarizing subject, and people just jumped right onto the polarity train. And out here, it's like, now no one's going to be able to, like, talk sensibly about it. And why is that even a big story in this country? There was a time things like that happened all the time, and it wasn't national news. Why in particular? What's going on in the world right now that they don't want us to be looking at? And they're like, hey, Shiloh Hendrix said a word.
Well, also because it's divide and conquer. And so it's one of those stories that are going to divide the population, get the pitchfork people arguing with the torch people.
Yeah, it definitely hasn't united anybody yet.
Yeah. But like, they want divide and conquer. They want the population fighting with each other. And so I think that the mainstream media loves when something like this comes along, that they can, take the focus off whatever, news is something that somebody wants to suppress. Everything else is advertising.
Yeah, I mean, what's a bigger story? Shiloh Hendrix made some sounds with her mouth, or CIA was moving crack cocaine in LA, which is kind of a racist thing to do, right? Now, you can't talk about that because you'll end up getting Gary Webbed, which is very much like getting Vince Fostered or Ron Brown or Michael Hastings or Aaron Schwartz. I don't know what I didn't write that out. So it's just, fresh metaphors mixed every week. So it seems in the past it was very dangerous to speak truth to power. And yet you've got people like O'Keefe outing Prince Andrew using his own people. Like, it's not like O'Keefe made these claims. It's like, no, he went and got an inside reporter to do undercover video with someone on the inner circle, someone whose words are pretty credible on the topic, given his history and lineage and relationship with those circles. So, I mean, I think it's a idea whose time has come. They've covered up all that stuff for long enough. And if people don't take awareness of it and it just passes by, then those elites will be like, oh, look, they don't even do anything when we tell them that we did it. Right? That's like a slave mentality. You want to be more of the prisoner mentality, always trying to escape and get to freedom. And then when you reach freedom, you want to be an abolitionist and go back into slavery and help people escape that cave and get to the outside world. Just my 2 cents.
A lot of these,
Yeah, I might be
a lot
wrong.
of these stories, they're almost like, and the movements that build around these stories are like the Gravitron ride, where you might enter as a reasonable, rational person, but once it starts spinning and spinning and spinning, it's going to try and pull you to one of the extremes of this artificial left-right paradigm. And just like the Gravitron, if you go far enough left or right, it wraps back around to totalitarianism every time.
Every goddamn time. That's how it works out. It's almost like it could be calculated, predicted, avoided. But no, they're steering us into it. So I don't know. Is there a lot of money in civil war? No. Well, maybe. But they get a lot of power from getting two sides to like go at it while they collect and save up their reserves, you know?
you can
What's
loan
Switzerland
money.
doing these days? Has anyone checked on the Swiss?
Right.
They seem to always survive such skirmishes. See also World War II.
That's
And
because
Alan Dulles.
they don't. They're all the same race. They don't divide and conquer like this. They're like they just don't have anything to divide over. They're just sitting in the mountains eating chocolate. Like,
Man, you just saw Macron and those fools. They can't even add and subtract, let alone divide and
I'm
conquer.
just kidding. Exactly. They got it down to a science here. It's pretty wild.
Yeah, they got some weird science going on.
Yeah.
Weird science.
I like
All
to
right,
call
so-
it the fluoridated, vaccinated, government schooled, corporate food eating, television watching, dumbed down public.
Say that 5 times. You could put that on the back of a T-shirt. People would read that in line, and they'd be like, "That's other people. That's not me."
Yep.
He must be speaking to other people with his T-shirt.
Well, I think it's probably a problem for the powers that shouldn't be that so many people are now dodging the poisons, and now you've got entire states that are banning fluoride. You've got chemicals in food is now, whether or not you believe Maha is real or not, it is, it's becoming front and center in the public's consciousness that, hey, there's a problem with the food. There's a problem with the glyphosated wheat. There's a problem with the atrazine. There's a problem with the recombinant bovine growth hormone. There's a problem with the phthalates. There's a problem with the BPA and the BPS and genetically modified ingredients. And so I do think that it's there's enough people that are aware of it and that are taking action that it's not going to continue to have the same effect on the population as it had in the past. More and more people are just dodging the bullet.
Look, what happens on a frog's lily pad is a frog's own business. So I don't care if the atrazine is making the freaking frogs gay. People would care more if the freaking frogs were being turned gray from the atrazine.
Yeah.
Because they think, frog, green, it's like two things that go together. It would shatter their idea of frogginess. You would have Kermit protesting on that one. Just a thought.
Unless you're a Hollywood celebrity and it's no longer like cool to adopt a kid from another country. Instead, you got to like feed your kid to atrazine to make them trans so you can be invited to all the coolest parties.
Why do you think that is?
Might be a thing.
That's something that I saw that statistic the other day of the amount of trans kids in Hollywood, but like what how do you get the kid to go along with it? I understand how you get the parent to go along with it.
You don't have to make anyone do anything if you just put it in the water. Wasn't that the whole point about the atrazine being in the water supply?
It's like
do you think that they're
vegan
doing
cat
it?
argument? The vegan cat argument. Like, there's no such thing as a vegan cat. There's vegan cat owners and that feed their cats vegan
Carrots, yeah.
vegan food. Like, I know somebody who's a vegan dog sitter that feeds the dogs vegan stuff, and I'm like, can you even do that? Is that even possible? I don't understand how that works.
Only if the dog identifies as a vegan. Otherwise, all sane dogs will reject vegetables that their stomachs are like, no, I'm good.
With no protein. I mean, I don't know.
Next on Canine Carnivores, we replace Fido's steak with rice and beans. Let's see what happens.
Yeah.
You call Stanley Steamer and get your carpets cleaned. That's what happens. Oh, it's too early for poop jokes. All right, so I want to show you guys the Waco trailer because we've been talking about a movie. But the cool thing about movies are they can be seen. So we're going to watch a little snippet. And if you want, Scott found the whole thing, Waco, A New Revelation, on the YouTube. And the username is RTXYZ1, almost like it's a pirate channel out there.
Just type in Waco New Revolution full video and it'll pop up.
You
guys
can find it
research
wherever it's reposted. All right, so how long is the trailer?
2 minutes, 34 seconds.
2 minutes, 34 seconds coming up. And this is a follow-up to Waco Rules of Engagement? Same filmmaker?
It is, yeah. Same crew. Some of the same crew.
Some of the same crew. All right. Well, let's check it out because I have not seen it. Mm-hmm.
They believed in a prophecy that there would come a time of persecution during a final confrontation with the system they called Babylon.
He knew law enforcement was coming. He laid an ambush.
It was not a general ambush as they would like you to believe.
The only way that this is going to end is for all of the people inside to die or to surrender, Brad.
Get that camera out of here! Get out of here! I need help!
We did not have a clue what the government, Babylon, in our opinion, was going to do in retaliation.
The Village Voice calls this a fresh, intriguing look at Waco. This is a film every American needs to see.
What I've heard on the press conference, the outright lie.
This is a tragic story of violence met with violence.
There was an aura there that we're going to end this thing.
FBI agents did not return any fire throughout the entire day.
What we have here is a tank infantry type of an operation. They open up with automatic gunfire.
On the use of military personnel and heavy equipment against U.S. citizens, other questions linger. How much was used and why?
The FBI did some wrong things, but they didn't light the fire.
I am very, very troubled by the information I received this week suggesting that pyrotechnic devices may have been used in the early morning hours on April the 19th, 1993 at Waco.
Other questions linger. Was the Attorney General pressured by the White House to end the siege? What were the roles of Webster Hubble and Vince Foster?
Items of evidence have disappeared. The crime scene was destroyed before it could be evaluated.
What we have is an open homicide.
I'm not embarrassed. I'm very, very upset.
Waco, a new revelation.
They've got a lot to answer for.
You know what occurred to me right there is Waco happened before Vince Foster got Terrence Yakied.
Yep.
Right? I mean, there's only 10 people who get that joke, but I appreciate it because Terrence Yakey did not kill himself. Terrence Yakey had a fear of seeing his own blood. Like, there's a whole bunch of things that are like incongruent with the crime scenes. Okay. And so, I mean, first off, I was a little confused in that video. It was supposed to be, I thought, Janet Reno, but it would look like Stephen King in a dress. What was going on there?
And I got to tell you, she looks like she's lying. Like, like she looks like a woman that is constantly lying at all times. It is, what? And Webb Hubble. Do you remember Webb Hubble? Like, it's been a while since I'd seen Webb Hubble. I'm like, oh my God, it's Webb Hubble.
Isn't that the guy who looks really like Chelsea Clinton?
Correct. That would be Webb Hubble. Exactly.
Almost like her biological dad type situation. Almost, maybe. Not making any claims, because there is a body count associated with questioning such things. Vince Foster might be on that list, actually. Or is that Ron Brown? Or is that both? Maybe
so
both.
Some of what you saw, I just want to throw in, like, because I have a couple of things. So the what appears to happen is, just for your audience that wasn't around back in 1993 and 1995, but in 1993 the ATF wanted to stage this kind of publicity stunt. They had appropriation hearings coming up. They didn't really do a lot of like paramilitary stuff back then.
That's a big word. We try to use like 13th grade words here. So appropriation breaks down to give away stolen money to something.
Right. They were trying to get more stolen money in their budget than they had last year, and so they wanted to stage this
to fight crime.
Stunt.
You have to say it like that. They needed more stolen money in their budget to fight crime.
To protect the life, liberty, and property of the American people. And so they were going to stage this raid. The Davidians were gun dealers. They bought and sold guns. They actually had a gun store on the site. A lot of people don't realize this, but they had a gun store on as part of their living arrangement. Is called the Mag Bag. There was never any hard evidence that they were engaged in any crimes whatsoever. They had bought some kits that some people had used to modify AR-15s to fire full automatics. So that was literally...
dare they?
Especially
if they've never been there.
Yes. And so based on... And a UPS driver found like a box busted open, and they found some empty grenade holes. And you can go to every, Army Navy store or gun kind of gun show in the country, and people are selling these, dummy, old grenades and
paperweights.
Paperweights. It says complaint department, take a number kind of thing. And so they were going to raid the Davidians with 100+ agents on the flimsiest of pretenses. In the initial raid, they had a plan to kill the Davidians' dogs if the Davidians' dogs tried to bite them or anything like that. And as far as I can tell, what happened is they essentially shot the dogs right out of
They probably had just seen Cujo, bro.
They shot
Cujo
the dogs.
made dogs scary for a lot of people.
They shoot the dogs, and then all the other ATF agents start shooting. Okay, so they they're shooting, and so then the ATF open up on the house, and so then a firefight ensues. If you saw Waco Rules of Engagement, they kind of had the same audio from the 9/11 call where the Davidians are on the phone with 9/11 going, please tell them to stop shooting. There's men and women, there's women and children in here. Please, have them stop shooting. We're going to shoot back. And they're like, after 10 minutes of having the building raked and having, multiple people, they killed 6 Davidians in the, in this kind of initial raid. They began to, fight back. The government said, this was something fascinating. The government said in the government story that they pulled up, and then the Davidians ambushed them, and they just began kind of raking the ATF with fire. But that's obviously not true, because in my favorite scene from the movie, and a lot of people don't realize this, the ATF actually runs out of ammunition. The ATF, after 2 hours of the fight, they actually run out of ammunition, and you can actually see that the Davidians let them go. and you can see the ATF walking backwards with their hands in the air, under, a truce. And if the Davidians had really had a murderous intent on killing foreign agents, they could have massacred them all because the ATF was out of ammunition.
I saw that on 60 Minutes like 20 years ago, dude. Why would they not show that footage? It seems like it's exonerating. It reflects a narrative they're not allowed to talk about. That's what it seems like.
Yeah, the other funny thing, so there was 2 years ago when it was the 30th anniversary of the Davidian massacre, 48 Hours did a like a 1 hour special where they brought the UPS driver out and they, it was all about Koresh, and it was a complete whitewash. And I went to IMDb, and everybody involved was too embarrassed to have their names listed as, the production crew. Like there's not a single name in IMDb about who the producers or the directors or anything was. They were too embarrassed to have their name associated with, this whitewash of a government massacre at a church.
Yeah, they should have got the guys who covered up the My Lai massacre. They were a lot better at it back then.
Twice a year, I teach a course called Autonomy. It's a 12-week course. It teaches leadership, entrepreneur skills, executive skills, all these types of things that I saw were taken out of our education system in order to make the schooling or indoctrination system that we've all probably went through. And it has served us well enough to be interchangeable cogs in the machine of the globalists. But if we want a homestead, if we want write our own ticket, work from home job, work from anywhere type of situation, they're not exactly handing those out at the end of college. They give you a piece of paper and they're like, good luck. So reality is dropping us off here, but the demands of reality are up here. So I created Autonomy to help people close that gap for themselves so they can level up their skills to the demands of the situations that life is putting in front of us presently. Life's demands of intellect and understanding precision and complexity are ever increasing. The schooling didn't prepare us for it. The media is not going to do anything but reinforce what schooling prepared us for. And so we're going to have to take a leadership position and take steps off the beaten path to kind of blaze our own trail in life. What makes the Grand Theft World podcast unique, invigorating, exciting, and informative? Most other podcasts out there are either doing straight up interviews or they're just covering the daily news. They're covering current events from the day they happened. And that is effective. It's useful. It's a great starting point. And then sometimes these current events change during the week past the first story. So we like to give it a little time. You have to wait till some of the dust settles on these stories in order to give them accurate coverage. And the other thing that's really missing in the media landscape is covering the articles that are coming out every day. That's great. That's necessary. But who's bringing in contextual history so that you can understand what has been going on for decades and decades to lead up to the machinations and actions that we see unfolding today? So what we do here on the podcast is we cover current events. Many of these things are censored, but we wait about a week. As a forensic historian, I focused mainly through my career on the history of globalism and collectivism and things that they call maybe the New World Order. There's a lot of facts to these sort of circumstances, groups, events, activities, working groups that they've had over time. So for Grand Theft World listeners, we not only break down the current events, most of which that are censored during the week, we provide you with contextual history, we give you the source notes, the references, we do deep dives, and this really empowers you with an understanding of context and history so that you can make more informed decisions in your life. There's also a community, a membership where you guys can actually ask questions and we can get into the show and we can share evidence. And there's a town hall weekly for Grand Theft World for those who listen to it and are interested in covering the stories that we don't get to during a 6-hour show. Listening to it an hour a day, you could easily consume the week's news, but you're going to have substance and meaning and context and understanding. And with that, you can make higher quality decisions in your life. So if you're interested in more quality in your life, go to grandtheftworld.com, click podcast at the top, and we'll see you there. Thank you.
These allegations are false.
This isn't Grand Theft Auto, folks. This isn't a video game.
What are the most surprising things that you discovered once you started pulling on that thread? Who he was connected to, what institutions he was influential over, what events he participated in?
talking about? Come on, man. No.
You don't have to think about it, dude.
I got this quote because you said you didn't know much about Klaus Schwab. I made it my job to, as soon as this happened, I'm like, okay, this guy's their front man. Let me learn about the official history of the World Economic Forum. I got their 40-year history. I got every book that Klaus Schwab has written or ghostwritten. I went through those books. This is one of the most interesting passages.
Come on, man.